This video is brought to you by Patreon. By signing up on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon, you get early access to all content, as well as grab bags of valuable cards and amazing mats exclusive to patrons. You can help keep coverage for Paper Magic alive by showing your support on the Phat Pack Magic Patreon today. Hello everyone and welcome back to Phat Pack Magic. I know it's been a few days. Did you miss me? I was at Magic Fest Reno and I had an amazing time. And I'm back, so here we go. On the left, we've got Daniel Garrison playing Blue-White Control, and on the right, we've got Ryan Saltzman playing Selesnya Collected Company. Now, he's going to be on the mulligan. However, guys, just a refresher, this is round 4 of the Darkside FNM Pioneer event. That means the winner of this game is going to go on to the finals, where they will be playing for the first place prize of over $100 in store credit. So money is on the line here, and we are going to start off, it looks like Ryan, dumping a card down underneath his deck, going on a mulligan. And it looks like Heliod just isn't going to be what he wants to do at the opener. Or he may just have another one in hand. But it looks like Ryan is deciding on his opening hand, or opening land. And it's a tap land, which is exactly what Daniel wants to see when you're playing a control deck. You want to see your opponent taking off a turn and just going a little bit slow. But Ryan's got a nice turn 2. It's Anafenza, the Kin Tree Spirit. He's going to take 2 life from this exchange, playing a Temple Garden into play untapped. But it looks like a 2-2 that's going to start like bolstering creatures, acting as an anthem, and as a dude, is pretty okay for what Ryan wants to be doing. And I really like Ryan's deck. Collected Company is a very strong card. And it's got to be something that Daniel is going to be very defensive about. He really doesn't want to see himself get caught and facing down 2 amazing beaters. And here we go, an Azorius Charm tucking the Anafenza to the top of the library. But Ryan's got the follow-up. It's Heliod, the Sun Crowned. And unfortunately, Heliod doesn't die to Supreme Verdict. But it looks like Daniel seems okay with Heliod. He's got something juicy in hand. It's Teferi. And from my own experience playing these blue-white control decks, Teferi is a game, like, Teferi, if I get Teferi on turn 3 and I can just go with Teferi without him being, like, killed immediately after, then my odds of winning that match just explode exponentially. So Teferi's got 1 counter on him. He bounced the Heliod and kind of just time-walking Ryan here. He's kind of stuck. But it looks like he's got a Walking Ballista in hand. And the question is, I guess he could play it and ping Teferi? It would leave him with a 1-1 dude. But he also just really wants to start getting value out of his Nykthos as well. Looks like he's going to take the shot while he has it open. Walking Ballista is going to come down for 2, ping Teferi for 1, and leave Ryan with a 1-1 Ballista, which isn't the most terrible thing in the world, I have to say. Walking Ballista is pretty good, and he can just start pumping it. He's got the Nykthos in play, so as soon as he starts getting more white pips, that Walking Ballista is going to be really dangerous. However, Daniel has a Field of Ruin in hand, and it looks like he's going to take 2 from this Hallowed Fountain instead, and it's a nice Hallowed Fountain. It's one of the new Return to Ravnica, or not, Ravnica, the new Ravnica, and it's a foily. It's pretty. I really like how the foil lights up the watermarks. I do have to say that I believe the original Rob Alexander Shocklands are the best. And here's something interesting. Daniel is going to try and tuck that Walking Ballista on top of Ryan's library rather than just take the 1. But honestly, it's kind of tricky here because Ryan could just put more counters on the Walking Ballista and effectively use up Daniel's turn. And just keep pumping into the Walking Ballista. And I guess now's a good time to do the Azorius Charm, because it makes Ryan make the decision on whether or not he wants to put the counter on there and then shoot Daniel, or if he wants to have a follow-up play. And it looks like having a follow-up play is more important to Ryan, because he's just gonna say, you know what, I'm gonna cast the Walking Ballista for bigger later. So Daniel plays out the Field of Ruin, And this could be really bad for Ryan because Daniel, well, I mean, he could have, like, crushed that Nykthos on the upkeep, made Ryan shuffle away the Walking Ballista, but it looks like he's not too afraid of it. Looks like he's fine with Walking Ballista. And it looks like Daniel is considering Ryan's attack with the Anafenza. He's going to take it, go down to 16, and Ryan's going to follow up with a Knight of the White Orchid. Now this is pretty tempting for Daniel because the main thing he wants is to be able to 2-for-1 with Supreme Verdict. But he may not want to let Ryan have those 4 white pips. He's really kind of in the tank here. And when you're playing Control, being completely reactive is it can be very stressful. It can be incredibly stressful. But he's gonna counter that, wait, what? With the, Field of Ruin? And then censor the, I'm 99% sure that Absorb costs double blue and white. Not 1 blue, 1 and 1. But I may have just been playing Absorb completely wrong these past, 20 years. Man, Absorb is really good if it only costs 1 blue, 1 blue and 1 to cast. I mean, it looks like Ryan kind of missed it, and it looks like Daniel might not have known that Absorb costs double blue and white. I mean, it's on the card. I feel like this is kind of just a really big misplay on both players here. But we're gonna skip through, and Ryan is gonna swing in for 2 with the Anafenza, bringing Daniel down to 15. And here comes the Walking Ballista on for 2. And I think Ryan is a little sad about not having that Infinite Combo here. But Daniel's got the Thassa's Intervention, which is going to counter it unless he pays 2. Which is not the best use of that card. I mean, countering it is fine. Thassa's Intervention is a great modal spell. And I do wish that it had I wish that it had both modes. I really wish that it was dismiss and you draw 2 cards, or dismiss for if you counter for 4 and then you draw 2 cards. That would have been much more preferable. However, I'm a mono blue freak, so those kind of counter spell cards are really my jam. Now here comes Teferi making another show in this matchup. One Teferi was not just great, it was really good, but a second Teferi might be too much for Ryan to handle. So Daniel able to play out the Teferi, drop his land for the turn, and pass back, while Ryan is forced to play on Hearthstone mode, which is kind of turning off his collected companies. Unfortunately, he hasn't found any. Ryan playing out another Walking Ballista. This is Walking Ballista, casted it 3rd time, but it's only Walking Ballista number 2. And again, paying the Teferi and really messing with Daniel's game plan here. Daniel decides to cash in the Field of Ruin, crushing out that Nykthos, and grabbing an island for himself. Now Ryan is kind of stuck here. He's pretty much down to 2 permanents. He's drawn a lot of lands this game. And Daniel looks like he's got 2 cards in hand, and they both seem pretty good. I saw one of them as Teferi, so that's really, really good. And the other one is Supreme Verdict, and that just might be what closes out the game for Ryan here. If Daniel drops the Supreme Verdict now, and it looks like he's got counter backup as well, in the form of Dovin's Veto. Now, unfortunately, Dovin's Veto isn't going to do a lot here in this matchup, given that Ryan is mainly running not a lot of non-creature spells, but it will be able to hit that juicy, fat collected company. And Daniel decides to pass a turn back, leaving 3 mana open, enough for a Dovin's Veto. And Ryan draws land for turn. Shields are down. Daniel is able to start capitalizing on Ryan just being out of permanence and having a very healthy life total of 15, by the way. So he's got a little bit of life to work with. And here comes Teferi, Hero of Dominaria. And this is just going to really start putting the game further and further out of reach for Ryan as Daniel untaps 2 lands. And it looks like he's drawn an Elspeth. And there's a finisher right there. Ryan looks like he's only got one card in hand. He's saying, all right, do your thing, bud. And Daniel just drawing counter magic, which is exactly what you want to do. And removal. Cast out. What a... Man. Ryan is going to have to do a lot of work to be able to come back from this. And it looks like Daniel is going to start really pressuring the advantage by playing out Elspeth, Sun's Nemesis, one of the feature cards of Theros Beyond Death, and one of the main additions to the blue-white control deck. Being able to use all those cards that get dumped in the graveyard and start making dudes and pumping dudes. So here, Elspeth comes down, and he passes the turn back, untapping 2 lands, but he's got Dovin's Veto and Absorb ready and willing to be able to knock out both of Ryan's cards, and he reveals that he's been drawing lands, and that is harsh. That is really harsh, because those decks usually run only 23 to 24 lands, and for Ryan to flat out like that, especially with Daniel being able to capitalize on that with Planeswalkers, Ryan just couldn't see himself winning out that game. But let's see if Ryan can get a more aggressive start and maybe even drop the namesake of his deck, Collected Company, in Game 2. And here we go on to Game 2. Looks like it's Daniel's turn to take the mulligan, and he's going to be going down to 6. Now, unfortunately, there were a couple slip-ups in the previous game, specifically Daniel being able to cast that Absorb for 1 blue and white, and unfortunately, in situations like that, this is all done in post, meaning that the game's already completed, I don't have any way to interact with what's going on, so mistakes like that, I can't really control. Now, when I start streaming, that's going to be a completely different story. We'll pause the game, we'll let people kind of catch mistakes and do kind of cool stuff like that as well, but until then, I'm stuck just kind of narrating after the fact. So, looks like Ryan had a slow start again, and that's really hard. But he's got a Thraben Inspector, and he's got a Clue Token to make up for it as well. Now, looks like, man, Daniel needs to kind of get better at reading his cards, because that irrigated farmland is a plains and an island, which is one of the main factors in using it in the blue-white control list. That would mean that the Castle Ardenvale will come down untapped. But Ryan's got a good follow-up. It's a Selfless Spirit, a 2/1 flyer that's going to prevent Daniel from using that juicy Supreme Verdict and being able to crush Ryan with card advantage. Now, end of turn, Daniel's going to Opt, and Opt is pretty good. I like Opt. And it seems like, again, he's forgetting that, oh, the irrigated farmland is a plains and an island. If I was there, I would have told him, because he's got Absorb. He's got the Absorb. You know, all that juicy counter magic. But he's going to be stuck on 2 mana, which is going to be really, it's not going to be great. I mean, he can probably use that Azorius Charm. He really needs to get that flyer out of the way as quick as possible. Because if Ryan can really start getting advantage and protect his team with that Selfless Spirit, it's going to be really, wow. Ryan must not have had another turn to play, because he's giving up that Selfless Spirit unless he has another one hiding away in his hand. So Knight is going to come down, it's going to grab a Plains, and it's going to come into play tapped, and Ryan's going to play a Sun Petal Grove. This is going to put him at 4, effectively, tying up the mana here. And here we go. All right, here comes Ryan, swinging in for 3. No blocks, damage. Daniel goes down to 15. Ryan has a good chunk of cards in hand, but the main one I see is Collected Company, and he could fire that off at end of Daniel's turn, which could be really painful for Daniel, because that would mean having to use counter magic on his turn, and when you're a blue player, that's the last thing you want to do. Now, it looks like Daniel's just going to play a land and pass. And that's what you want to do when you're playing blue-white control. I mean, the cool thing is that he's got that Castle Ardenvale. So at the end of Ryan's turn, he can take the 3 damage and start making blockers. Ryan crashes in for 3. Daniel falls to 12. And it looks like Ryan didn't want to fire off that Collected Company at end of turn. Instead, he just opted to draw a card with the Clue token. I guess I was more distracted by Daniel's amazing gameplay of playing a land and pass than I was focused on Ryan. So here comes Thassa's intervention in the dig through time mode. Except it's not going to dig through time. It's going to dig through, a few seconds. It's going to dig a little bit. It's still going to draw him 2. And it's a great mana sink. And it's a great card that can just kind of fill the graveyard and act as a modal spell that allows Daniel to have counter magic up on turn 3 or have a draw spell at the later turns. Looks like he's deciding on which of the 2 cards he's going to put to his hand, and one's going to get tucked to the bottom. Ryan not using this point to bust out a Collected Company, but it might be the correct play because Daniel might be searching for a Supreme Verdict. And it looks like in his hand, he's got a Settle the Wreckage as he passes the turn back to Ryan. And Ryan is just content to be on a 4-turn clock here, dealing 3 damage to Daniel and building up cards in his hand, trying to outlast Daniel for that, that Supreme Verdict that's eventually coming. And it might be Daniel's turn to drop a Settle the Wreckage. And he says, nope, instead it's just going to be a little bit of a time walk, and it's a Azorius Charm. It's going to put the Knight of the White Orchid on top, and really, you don't want to use a board wipe on 3 power of creatures. You really want more than 2 creatures for your board wipe. Now it looks like Ryan is going to take 2 here, playing a Temple Garden into play untapped. Looks like he's going to start going for that Collected Company. It might be time to do that. And Anafenza means that he'll be able to bolster that Thraben Inspector, being that it's the least power creature on the board. Dig through time, chewing through a bunch of cards in the graveyard, allowing Daniel to dig through time and find the best of the top 7. And it looks like a really good top 7 there. Supreme Verdict, Monastery Mentor, Teferi. These are some tough choices. Now, Daniel's got a board wipe in hand, so he may not be valuing that Supreme Verdict as much. But Teferi is such a good card. And honestly, Teferi is so much better than what his text reads. Teferi just is so good. He's so unassuming. Being able to force your opponent to play Hearthstone while you play Magic and being able to cast Supreme Verdict at instant speed is so gross. And unfortunately, Daniel didn't take it. Instead, he opted for Mentor of the Meek. Or not Mentor of the Meek. Monastery Mentor. Completely different Mentor, but both making Meek tokens. Daniel deciding on whether or not he wants to kind of bait out some more damage from Ryan's side of the field. But he says, nope, here comes Supreme Verdict. That's going to kill off Ryan's board. But little does Daniel know, Ryan is sitting pretty with a Collected Company that, it could. Daniel might try and just, outlive it with a Settle the Wreckage on the next turn. Here it comes. Collected Company. Is Daniel going to let that slide? No. Here comes Absorb. And this time, paid for the correct colors of mana. It's going to gain Daniel 4 life, putting him up to 3 life, putting him up to 14. And it's going to make a little bit of trouble for Ryan, because now he's got to play out creatures and spend a turn casting things. And Daniel just able to kind of, outlive. Daniel's at 7 mana right now. And that's kind of where you want to be in the control deck. And it looks like Ryan is sitting at the same amount of mana. He's got 4 cards in hand. But it doesn't look like a lot of them are really that exciting. It's Heliod. Heliod's good, but it can't attack yet. On top of that, Daniel is sitting with the Settle the Wreckage, and while Supreme Verdict can't deal with Heliod, Settle the Wreckage certainly can. Daniel with another one of those very, very pretty hollowed fountains. And Settle the Wreckage, cast out, Monastery Mentor and Dig Through Time, just in case he wants to draw a bunch of cards again, because, why not? You're blue-white control. Draw all the cards you want. All right, here comes land, and here comes Monastery Mentor. And the most difficult part about playing this kind of deck is you have to tap your mana correctly. You really need to be on point with your colors. So Daniel is holding up Cast Out, and he's holding up, it looks like enough mana, it is, for Settle the Wreckage. Now, here comes Benalish Marshal. It's a one-man anthem that's also going to be the correct amount of pips to turn on Heliod and make him not a 5/5, but a 6/6. And here comes the damage coming through. It's 3 from the Knight of the White Orchid and 6 from Heliod, a potential of 9 damage. Now, Daniel is kind of stuck here because he doesn't want to use that cast out and get got by another Heliod or something just as dangerous. And it might be too early to use that Settle the Wreckage because the Benalish Marshal is in play as well. And, ooh, this is very clever. So Heliod activates, giving the Knight of the White Orchid lifelink. First strike damage happens. Daniel goes down to 11, and it puts a +1/+1 counter on Heliod, making him a 7/7. And damage again, he goes to 4. Now, Ryan is at only 3 mana. That might have been the correct play to take the 3 and then use Settle the Wreckage because they're both attacking creatures. But Daniel is going to really try and outlast the slaughter here and try and get ultimate value and hit that Benalish Marshal as well. With his lone Monastery Mentor just kind of chilling, this might be some next level chess moves here, because I think if Ryan said, if Daniel isn't going to do something for these 2 creatures, then I don't think he's going to do something for another one as well. And Daniel just might be on chump block mode here. He passes the turn back to Ryan. Now, what Daniel can do here is drop a cast out on the Benalish Marshal, and that would deactivate the Heliod. But it looks like Daniel's going for full value here. Here's 4 mana, Settle the Wreckage. Oh, and hey, Monastery Mentor trigger as well. But the unfortunate thing is that Daniel here is at 4 life. And that means that Ryan can get really frisky with those 3 extra lands. And if he draws a Walking Ballista and Daniel doesn't have the counter magic for it, that's GG's, bruh. So they're both digging through their libraries, and he's digging through his token box. 3 planes comes down, and here's a ton of mana. 3, 4, and a Dusk, a really interesting spell here. It's going to kill off that Monastery Mentor, and it's going to allow Ryan to grab a few creatures from his graveyard at a later date. Daniel trying to decide if he has a response to this. I mean, he doesn't have counter magic, but he does have Dig Through Time, and that might just be the correct play here. The Monk token is only going to get +1/+1, so it'll be a 2/2 with the Dig Through Time. Monastery Mentor will make another token, and these could potentially be chump blockers, as well as allowing Daniel to grab some good cards from his library. But this doesn't seem to be as exciting as the previous batch of cards. But one of the cards was really interesting. I kind of caught a glimpse of, and that's Dream Trawler. And Dream Trawler is a standard all-star. It has been incredibly disgusting when I've played that card. Oh my god. Usually games just kind of end when I cast Dream Trawler and I'm able to untap with it. So Ryan drops a Militia Bugler, it's a good card. It's a 2/3 vigilance, but it's going to be able to dig through and find more cards for Ryan. A little bit of card advantage, while also being able to put pressure on the board against Daniel. And Daniel only has 2 1/1s, so he might have to start the chump block train. And it looks like from the top 4 cards, Ryan opts for another Militia Bugler. It's going to go into his hand, and here's a nice little Thraben Inspector, making a clue token, and it looks like Ryan's got a ton of mana, so I think he's going to be fine with that clue token there. Now, Ryan, being almost out of lands in his library, I mean, he looks like he's got 11, so a lot of his library is just really live draws. Daniel counting it up. I mean, it could be time to drop that Dream Trawler. It turns both of his cards in hand into pretty little, dive downs. Well, dive downs that tap the creature. And it doesn't give it +3. It's fine. It's fine. It gives it hexproof, and that's the important thing. However, I don't think Ryan has a ton of interaction here. Now, unfortunately, Daniel is really kind of stuck because he desperately needs a good counterspell, because if Ryan draws a Walking Ballista, this could be the game. And it looks like Ryan has found a Heliod. So, well, he's going to drop the Militia Bugler first. It looked like he could just be digging for that Walking Ballista. And unfortunately, Collected Company gets tossed to the bottom. And Ryan might be worried about a counterspell here. Daniel has 2 cards in hand. So Ryan just says, here we go. Do you got the counterspell? Daniel looking at the cards in hand, and he says, you know what? Maybe it resolve. And that's just kind of how blue players work. Technically, he has something he can do. He can cycle that cast out, but instead he's just going to cast out the Heliod instead. And that's going to make a trigger, or no, it's not, because he doesn't have Monastery Mentor. My bad. Daniel draws trigger on the Dream Trawler. And now that he's finally able to start swinging with it, he's going to be able to start getting card advantage and being able to lifelink his way to victory. Swinging in for 5 at Ryan, bringing him down to 18, and slowly flipping life totals and going up to 9. And he draws a card. Because, that's blue-white control. I'll just draw all the cards that I ever want, and you try and figure out a way through it. And Ryan is going to be in a really hard place here. He's going to draw a card with that clue token, but he really needs something like Walking Ballista. He honestly needed it last turn, but, this turn might be okay. He's got a lot of mana to go with. But it looks like Daniel has found the counterspell he needs, Thassa's Intervention, and it's really unfortunate that Dusk to Dawn, he really needed that Walking Ballista the previous turn. It might put Daniel out of reach, because Daniel is going to be able to start making tons of chump blockers. He's got the Castle Ardenvale. He's got Mentor of the Meek, or Monastery Mentor. And now Ryan's crashing in. He's got to keep the advantage up. That's 5 damage coming in at Daniel. And I think Daniel might just want to start chump blocking here, because he can't let him get himself low enough to where Walking Ballista is just an auto win. You could do something really tricky and maybe cast the Thassa's Intervention, or cast a spell and block, making another monk token with the Mentor of the Meek. Monastery Mentor. Why do I keep messing that up? So here's a double chump block with the monk tokens. He's only going to take 1, go down to 8. But Ryan might want to try something here. Here's a lot of mana. And there's the Walking Ballista. But there's the Thassa's Intervention. Oh, wow, that's really painful. I feel a little bit bad for Ryan. But I'm a blue-white player at heart. I love control. So I'm rooting for Daniel here, but I'm trying to be non-biased. So that Thassa's Intervention is going to make another token with Monastery Mentor and allow Daniel another turn at life and another swing with that Dream Trawler. And Dream Trawler just being so strong here. And here it comes, swinging in. That's 5 damage with lifelink. Oh, and he gets to draw a card. Oh my god, I love watching Dream Trawler in action. Now, unfortunately, a lot of his cards in hand are just really dead draws. Just lands. But I think it's fine, because here's another Castle Ardenvale, and it's going to put Daniel up to 13. So life totals are equalized at 13 all, and Ryan crashing in for another 5 damage. And Daniel could just make a bunch of tokens and say, you know what, I'm good. I'll block with the Mentor token. I'll make another Human Soldier token with Castle Ardenvale. Block the 2/3s and take 1 damage. Go down to 12? Yeah, that seems fine to me. So here's a Monk token, or no, here's a Human token. He's going to take 3. He's going to go down 10, holding on to the Monk token. And Dawn is going to happen, and that might be kind of tough for Daniel, because it's going to grab a ton of creatures back from Ryan's graveyard, and one of the most noteworthy creatures is Walking Ballista. So Ryan picks up his graveyard, puts it into his hand, because, why not? Honestly, he needs all the help he can get. So here comes Anafenza, Kintree Spirit, and here's a Thraben Inspector, which is going to trigger a Bolster ability. It's going to put the counter on the Inspector, and it's going to make a Clue token. And the question is, is he going to try and play out the Walking Ballista now? If Dawn happened, then Ryan's got to feel like, he can get that Walking Ballista out. And if he draws nope, he's going to pass the turn. Now, what Ryan doesn't know is that most of Daniel's hand right now can't do anything. He's out of counter magics. He's relying on Dream Trawler, but 2 cards on top, just reversing the order with Castle Vantress. Ryan's got to feel a little bit scared here, because both cards are going to be able to go into his hand directly, drawing 1, triggering the Dream Trawler, and 1's an opt. Okay, so that can kind of, it can boost the Dream Trawler's power, which means another point of life. And Dream Trawler's so good. I love swinging with this thing in Standard and then casting Thirst for Meaning and drawing 3 cards, triggering it 3 times, giving it +3/+. Oh, it's so good. So, swings in, gaining 5 life, bringing Ryan down to 8. Ryan desperately using a Clue token. He needs some kind of Anthem here. And there's another Walking Ballista. Kind of a shame he didn't cast the first one now, because that would just be 2 points of extra power. And then he could maybe follow up with a big Walking Ballista. Thing is that he could have used the first Walking Ballista at end of turn to try and kill off a Monk token. So he swings in with the entire team. In response, Daniel casts Opt, and that's going to make another Monk token and give the Monastery Mentor +1/+1, and give the Monk token +1/+1, making it a 3/3 and a 2/2 respectively. Now the question is what he's kind of looking at if he wants to keep it on top. Daniel's in a great position here because he has Absorb, so he can counter anything Ryan's got going on. Ryan only has 2 cards in hand, and they're both Walking Ballistas. So Monastery Mentor is going to get in the way of one of the Militia Buglers. The Monk token is going to get in the way of the unpumped Thraben Inspector. And it looks like the third token is going to start kind of getting in there. And that's going to jump in the way of the pumped Thraben Inspector. Damage happens. Daniel goes down to 11. He keeps his Monastery Mentor and one of the Monk tokens. And Ryan is going to have to figure out some way to beat that Dream Trawler. Unfortunately, his deck doesn't really have a lot of interaction outside of Walking Ballista and Heliod. So here comes 2 mana. And wait, what? Okay, now we got Nick those mana. It's gonna make 4 white. He's doing the math. Maybe he can get through. Here's Walking Ballista. It's a last-ditch effort. But Absorb counter it, and Daniel's going to gain 3 life, and Ryan scoops it up, and the match win is going to go to Daniel. Dream Trawler making Daniel's dreams come true and bringing him into the next round, which is the finals of this FNM Pioneer event. But that's going to be it for us this time on Phat Pack Magic. Thank you guys so much for watching. Click that subscribe button, hit that notification bell to get updates on all my newest videos, and tap that like button, not just for me, but for my players too. So until next time, may all your packs be fat.